Yes, you're good. Charlene?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Tim?
Tim?
All right.
No, can you hear Tim? No.
Okay. All right. Well, Tim, come on in. We are going here, and it's Thursday night, and we want to welcome our audience in. And we're going to have a good showing tonight. We've been picking up steam. It seemed like we're getting some touches out there. I want to thank
We
audience
cannot hear
for
you, Daddy.
thank, he's got audiences coming in, and we're getting adjusted here. And we really appreciate you guys out there hitting that like, subscribe, and it would be great to see some comments. And so we're live out here. We're getting some comments after the fact, which is all great. But if you're out live there, it's good to just go in and just say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from. But also, we have Tim and Addie on here tonight, and we're going to have them again next week as well. And so while we're here online, it would be great if you join us. Go ahead and send us tag us and nudge us and let us know that you are there and say hello to our evening. So again, if you have not subscribed, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. Of course, we're growing our audience, so we're growing our community, and we're going to
Charlene?
bring some good contact there. And so,
He
yes,
cannot.
Echo, maybe go off and come back on. That sounds good. And so, I want to say welcome. And of course, we're on both YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we are also on Instagram. And so, again, we got a lot of things going on. We're going to continue to talk about what's going on Saturday. And so we're going to cover that at the end of our talk tonight a little bit more. So if you haven't had the opportunity to follow us, continue to follow us on all these platforms. You may be joining us on YouTube. Of course, check us out on Facebook. Check us on Instagram. And we may be TikTok here soon, but we're not doing a lot out there right now. We're on LinkedIn and also our website. I do understand there was some people that was trying to register for a Saturday, and it was showing that the event had been expired. So some of the ticket choices had expired, but they've been opened back up now. So that time has been extended through Saturday. And if the donation said ever you see one of our donation links that it expired, it really don't expire. You can make a donation at any time, just in case if the link on the YouTube, on the Eventbrite is not working or whatever platform we may be posting the event. You can also always go to our website, and that's firsthomealliance.org and /donate, and you can make a donation at any time, whether we're having an event or not. Your donations are all tax deductible, and no donation is too small. So any contribution that you would like to make to our effort so that we can reach more. So please go out and make a donation at any time. But we're also looking for you for Saturday. And so we have a large expectancy there. And we're going to be there all day. We're going to get started at 11 o'clock. Charlene, go ahead and say hello to our audience.
Hey y'all, how you doing this evening? Thank you so much for joining us for our Thriving Thursday conversation. A good conversation is getting ready to be had. We're going to be talking about home inspections again. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to First Home Alliance, tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, where we provide the services, and how you can possibly get in contact with us if the services that I go over you are interested in. So, First Home Alliance was established by our president and founder, Mr. Larry J. Laws, in 2002. He was about getting ready to wrap up serving his country, and so his mother purchased her first home at the age of 65. So he transferred from serving country to serving community. And long story put in a little pretty box in a gist, right? And so again, once he started to serve the community, that's when he decided to open up First Home Alliance. And what is First Home Alliance mission? Our mission is to increase home ownership to low to moderate income family, along with serving our veteran community. And let me stick that word sustainable in there. Providing sustainable home ownership to low to moderate income families. What are the service types that First Home Alliance provide? We provide pre-purchase counseling. Counseling meaning I want to purchase a home. I'm not sure. I Googled it. It gave me some classes, which is good. It gave me some classes, but I need a little bit more than classes. And so, with that being said, First Home Alliance offers pre-purchase counseling. And so, if you are an individual who's looking to purchase a home, by getting that counseling, we assign an advocate to your on your behalf to help you build that home buying team. We also offer loss mitigation services. That is, I own a home. Experiencing a hardship, whether it be through death, disability, divorce, or just life, and as we've been hearing a lot lately. Again, our advocate will be assigned to you, and we will try and help you to do what? The number one thing is to prevent foreclosure. We also offer rental counseling. We want to help you prevent that lease agreement to going into default or being evicted. And so we'll again act as an advocate to help you prevent from being displaced. And the other services that we provide are credit counseling as well as debt and budget management. And emergency preparedness. So that's pretty new, I want to say, in the last 5 years, the last 5, 6 years. Emergency preparedness is also a service type that we offer. Where are these services offered? Woodbridge or Virginia, Maryland, as well as the South Side of Chicago. But we are virtual, so it really doesn't matter where you are located. If you have access to the internet, we are able to reach out and touch you and provide those services to you. We want you to stay tuned to the end of this conversation so you can find out how, if any of those services that I just went over piques your interest, and how you're able to get in contact with us and start receiving those services. With that being said, I'm going to throw it to Mr. Law so we can get into our conversation tonight. Larry?
All right, Charlene, thank you. Okay, and so we're back again tonight with HouseMaster, and HouseMaster has been a partner with First Home Alliance probably since existence, forever. And they've been a very good partner and supporter in our community, both providing the services because we serve some of the same households in the service with housing counseling. They serve with home inspections, but they also partner with empowering our community with education, and so have been involved in the Virginia housing education arena for a number of years, and so very educated and also informed about all the home inspection needs. And so tonight we're going to welcome Tim and Addie back. Tim, how you doing this evening?
Hi, Larry. We're doing great.
All right.
Thanks for having us again.
No problem. Welcome.
Hi.
Yes, welcome, Addie. Yes, and so we're going to get into the conversation tonight. Yes, and so we're going to talk about addressing some of those items, so you want to give us a recap and bring us up here to where we are now about addressing some of those items that may be found on the home inspection, and how we can move our next step in that.
Yeah, so we started off the conversation 2 weeks ago where we talked about what home inspection was. And then last week we talked about what some of the major conditions were that you might find during a home inspection. And so today we want to talk about the negotiation process. So what I really wanted to start off with is your negotiation process for home inspections actually starts when you sign your contract to purchase your home. So the home inspector typically isn't even involved in that conversation. It's just you and your home and your realtor. And so what happens is it's very important that when you sign your first contract that you negotiate whether you're going to be able to have a home inspection or not, whether you're going to be able to negotiate repairs or whether it's as is. If it's a really hot market and there isn't a whole lot of and there's a lot of people bidding on a house, then you may find yourself in a situation where you're not actually able to negotiate for repairs. You might have to sign a contract that says, I'm going to purchase the house without a home inspection or just for information purposes only, or something less than being able to negotiate repairs. And so it's important to know the market that you're in. If it's not a hot market, and that was at the height of COVID, we like to compare the contract market to like musical chairs. In a normal market, there's a few buyers, there's a few houses, and people put in contracts and they get approved. In a buyer's market, there's more buyers there's more chairs than buyers, so you kind of get to pick the house that you want. But in a seller's market, it could be like there's a lot less chairs, and so everybody's fighting to see who gets them. And so you may have to negotiate away some of your contingencies to get the house that you really want. I would caution you to be very careful about doing something like that, because if you negotiate your ability to repair, I would also recommend that you still consider doing that home inspection after closing. Don't just because you bought the house and you had to buy it, and that was the only way you get the contract signed, and now you found that perfect house that you want to buy. Getting that home inspection done could still help you prioritize the things that need to be done, so you don't spend all your cash repainting the place and then find out 6 weeks later there's a major repair that has to be done. And you spent all your cash on cosmetic items to make it look a little bit better. So that's the first step, is look at what the actual market is and look at what what you're able to negotiate. Your realtor can help you with that. They'll let you know whether it's a market where you're going to be able to negotiate those repairs or not, and they can advise you on how the best way it is to get that contract signed in a manner that the seller is going to accept your offer above all the other offers that are being submitted. If you're the only offer, then maybe you can ask whatever you want. If you're one of 50 offers, you may have to negotiate some things away to get that contract.
Right. Super. And so is it, in reference to our real estate agents, is it good to have that discussion with them early in the process? And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Have that discussion early in the process with your realtor, and make sure that whoever you hire as your realtor, it's really someone that you're willing to work with. That doesn't happen often, but every once in a while I have a client who says, I don't really trust my realtor. I said, why are you working with them? You should trust them with everything. If you don't trust them, hire somebody else. It's so important. This is one of the largest financial decisions you're going to make in your life. And so selecting the right home inspector, selecting the right realtor, selecting the right mortgage company, the counselors is personal and individual. And you need to make sure that you're comfortable with your whole team that you're working with. And so you absolutely have to have this conversation early with your realtor. Today, we typically find houses where people are able to negotiate for repairs, but it wasn't that long ago where it was such a hot seller's market that people had to negotiate away a lot of their contingencies in order to get that contract signed. And there's typically like 5 main contingencies. It's the appraisal. So if the house doesn't appraise at the right amount, and it comes in lower than the amount you're offering, you may not be able to get a mortgage for it or the loan for it. So that's the first one. There's the home inspection contingency, which means that you'll hopefully be able to negotiate repairs on that. There's the financial or loan. So if you can't get a loan, then obviously that needs to be, you need to have a way to get out for that. If it's part of a homeowners association, like a condo or a townhome association, or even just a regular residential homeowners association, you have to agree to abide by those rules. So that's another one of the contingencies. And there's one more I forgot, which was or is it just 4?
It's 4.
Okay, it's 4 major contingencies. So those, if you're paying cash and maybe you can afford to negotiate if the appraisal comes in higher, I'm going to pay that anyway, and no one else has to approve, just me. So maybe you do have the ability to go to renegotiate, or take care of that out of your own pocket. If the appraisal comes in different from, then you can't, because then you don't have to get a loan. Are you willing to spend $400,000 for a $300,000 house? That's a decision you have to make.
Right.
But if you waive that contingency, then you don't get a chance to renegotiate that.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Well, that sounds good. And, just to recap in reference to the question that came up in the class was in reference to when should we build that team, even consider the home inspection as a team member as well. And so how far out and when should we consider, having that team?
Well, when working with the First Home Alliance and with Virginia Housing, people typically start that education process as much as a year in advance to help work on building credit and other things. We recommend you actually start shopping around then and interviewing home inspectors and find 2 or 3 that you're willing to work with. We recommend that you use the HUD questions. If you Google it, you can see HUD has 10 questions they want you to ask, and it's a great starting point for the conversation. We talked about those in detail last time. But you want to make sure that the home inspector that you hire is somebody you're willing to work with. And so ask them those 10 questions and find 2 or 3, because the one you want may not be available. I'd love to be the perfect home inspector for everybody, but I'm just one person deep. And so
you're a rare breed, Tim. It's not a lot of you around here, you know?
So there's actually quite a few home inspectors around. It's not that hard to find us, but finding one you're willing to work with might be more challenging.
Yeah.
And so we always recommend you consider doing that.
Yes.
But like you said, do it, start it as early as possible. Find 2 or 3 you're willing to work with. And that way you have a couple people that you can call when that contingency gets signed. You're not going to have a whole lot of time. And if you spend your time interviewing them, then you're going to have a hard time finding the one that's available and meets all 10 of your questions the way you want.
Incorrect. And this is in reference to that last workshop we was in. And yes, this is not necessarily a question that you was asked, but it came up in the class, not only when you build that team, but they was asking about the length of these agreements. And so I know everyone speak of the real estate buyer's agent agreement. They call it a contract, which if it's signed by both parties, it is a contract. And so there are some individuals get into 6 months or a year contract. And so it's sort of like, even I think the real estate professional was there saying, maybe your first contract with a realtor, you may not want to go 12 months. And so consider maybe a shorter term contract, and you can be transaction specific as well if you would like to go that short, but you can go transaction specific, but do not recommend it. Do not go for a 6 or 12-month agreement on your first agreement with some of the real estate professionals. But yes, and so I just want to bring that out from the workshop.
Can I interject on that in there? So if you want to start, a person that wants to start looking, the first thing that they should do is contact you guys, like First Home Alliance or a HUD counselor, because you might not like to work with that HUD counselor. So you need to find, and that's the beginning point.
Yeah.
So, but not to put, Charlene is one of the best. So anyhow, but then the next thing is shop around for a mortgage company, because they have to know how much can they afford to buy a home. And then on the realtor, the same thing. And I tell people when I do presentations is, you are hiring everybody throughout the entire stage of the home buying process. You can start as far as a year out, because you might have some financial situation that a HUD counselor can provide responses. And then as far as the realtor and the lender, the same thing. They might have different products that might be best for you. So you need to hire somebody. And as for the question that you have for realtors is, nowadays, people, you have to, because they want to save themselves, they want you to sign a paper that says that you're contracting them, but it doesn't have to be a year. It can be for this weekend or a month, because you want that person to be able to show you some houses that you might be looking at. So but it's important. And the realtors will be asking you as a customer, as a buyer, yes, you need to sign this contract in order for me to take you around to see things. The time contingency, that time can be as short as, I think as short as a month, 6 months, a year. So that's in response to that question that you had.
Right. Correct. But for home inspections, our contract is transactional. We typically don't get a 6-month contract. I wish I could get a home 6 months, but what we want to do is we want to actually come in when you've already decided on the house. So the realtor is helping you find and shop around. So they're going to be working with you for a few weeks, hopefully, maybe longer. I'll be honest, we tortured our realtor. Well, we must have seen 150 houses before we ever picked a house. When we bought the house we're living in now, we tortured our realtor. She was so happy when we finally picked the house. But once you find the house, then you sign a contract for the home inspector. It's just for that one transaction.
Correct.
And when you hire, and when you're hiring that inspector, again, you want to have different, because what if, like right now for us, he's booked up until next Tuesday, and people wait on doing the transaction of hiring an inspector when they get the contract ratified. Well, my experience has been in the past several months is that they put in the contract that you want 15 days for inspection or 10 days, which is usually the norm. they're coming because it's so competitive. They're cutting it out to 3 days. I just had a customer yesterday that called in and said, please, can you squeeze me in? Nobody else can take me. I only have 4 days.
Mhm.
So, and that's why it's important, again, that like he said, Tim said at the beginning, that you need to start hiring and looking people, interviewing people, not only on home inspection, but in every single of the stages of the home buying process.
Yes, and just for clearance and clearing it up, is so having a home inspector or one or two home inspectors or more that you have spoke with and interviewed, and having them as I still use it as a relationship. It don't necessarily mean you're going to sign a contract with the home inspector, because that contractual agreement with the home inspector, again, is once you have a contract that you're entering into a real estate sales contract. But to have a relationship with multiple prior to build a relationship, and so we recommend you do that as far out as you possibly can. Yes, and if you again, we're if you haven't already attended a class, of course we First Home Alliance and also HUD Counseling Agency, we want to be the doorway, the gateway to home ownership. And so if you're thinking about it, of course, if you're already in a transaction, of course, we're not going to turn you down just because you're in a transaction, but we would like for you to get started with the education process, attend a workshop. And also go ahead and build that relationship with a housing counselor in reference to sitting down, talking to the counselor, putting together a package in reference to all your financials, look at your spending, your budget, and seeing what your affordability, and also, what you're comfortable with spending, because you can qualify for, in a lot of cases, a lot more than you're comfortable with spending. So we can have the counselor can have that real conversation with you and say, yes, you can afford a $600,000 house, but if you move that price down a few points and say maybe a 525 or lower, then that's going to be that's your comfort level. And so we want to build that relationship with you and get started with that as soon as possible. All right. And so Tim, we was talking about with that, and so when I know you're talking about that we talked about that laundry list that could be, and so how would we recommend or talk to a homeowner when they went through the home inspection and there's a lot of items on that list? How are you gonna?
So that's a great question, Larry, and I just want to point out that there's really no perfect house. Every house has some things that need to be done in it. Because of the laws in Virginia, expect your report to be very detailed and it can be longer. Don't let that dismay you just because you got a long home inspection report. That's actually not uncommon. But what you want to do is you want to prioritize what it is you want to negotiate. So you've got to decide, what things are you comfortable taking care of yourself? Some things that may be homeowner things, like maybe simple caulking around windows and doors, or caulking around plumbing fixtures and things. Maybe those are things you can take care of yourself. Things that require a plumber or an electrician, if you're comfortable doing plumbing work or electrical work, maybe you can do that yourself. If you're not comfortable, please, always hire a professional. It may not be the cheapest person that does the best job for you, but always have a professional who's competent in those things take a look at it. And what you want to do is prioritize what it is you want to work on. Things that are safety issues should go to the top of the list. Anything that's electrical is a potential safety issue, so those should be on the top of the list. Plumbing leaks, no matter how small, they only get worse over time. And water is not your friend in a house. You want to keep it under control as much as possible. Everyone loves having running water in the house, but you don't want it running all over the place. And so it's important to control that, whether it's the roof or a plumbing leak or a drain leak or something like that, or something that's backed up. You want to make sure that you prioritize fixing those things that are going to get worse very quickly. So anything that's safety related, anything that's water related could potentially become a bigger problem. You got to decide, or is this something that I can adjust a stopper on a sink and make sure that doesn't leak? But if it's more complicated than that, maybe you can't. Or you have P-traps. I see, the sink's draining slowly. It's designed so that you can actually take it apart by hand, clean it out, and put it right back in again. And if you're comfortable doing that kind of stuff, those are pretty simple repairs. And so, those may not be the showstoppers that you want to pay most of your attention on. Look at the big, and then the next thing is look at the big ticket items. And don't let that, just understand that just because it's a big ticket item doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last forever. Roofs don't last forever. They got to be replaced about every 20 to 25 years. Heating and cooling systems typically get replaced every 10 to 15 years. If you maintain them, they can last a lot longer. Water heaters get replaced periodically. So just because you have an old water heater, as long as it's working, that's pretty much all you can ask the seller to do is make sure that it's working for you. Knowing that it's 15 years old, you should make sure that you budget for future replacement or purchase a home warranty to help offset any surprise costs that might pop up that first year that you're not prepared to pay for. If you have an older water heater, but you don't want to have to pay for it that first year, maybe you want to spend a few $100s on a home warranty to help provide you some cushion from any of those unexpected appliance failures or things like that might take place that insurance typically doesn't take care of. You had something you want to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that in regard to the repair and the entire process of a home inspection, when you get the inspection, we inspectors, we do not get involved on the negotiation of what gets done or where and how. That's going to be between you, the realtor, and the buyer, and the seller, and seller's realtor. We can only bring to your attention what are the issues in the house, and we can, if, like he said, consider the items that are in the report, and consider the ones that it will be more important to get it fixed as opposed to be something that is a minor. You're going to see contracts that, for example, we have seen contracts where the realtor said, the seller's agent put a stipulation on the contract where it says, I will repair anything if it's over $5,000. Okay, so that's one thing that when you are having the contract prior to being ratified or when it's ratified, you need to be aware that you read that contract again, because people don't tend to do it. And you have to see what are the conditions that you have. Mm-hmm. So just want to make sure that people know that we do not get into the industry as an inspection industry. We do not get into negotiating on your behalf of doing every X or Y repair.
Yeah. Home inspectors are experts at the conditions of home. You're expert on the negotiation process. That's really the realtor's job. And not because I want to push it off on them, but they know more about the transaction. They know your conditions. They know the seller's conditions. They know if it's hasn't been sold for 10 years and there's a lot of equity, maybe the seller has a little bit more leeway to fix some items that is somebody that was in an estate sale and they're just trying to get out from under a mortgage payment. Maybe they don't have any ability to negotiate any real repairs. And so some things, the realtor knows a lot more about that and can help you in that negotiation process. Just because we say things need to be repaired doesn't necessarily mean it's not a to-do list for the seller. We said that during the first meeting. The home inspection is not a to-do list for the seller. And whether you're getting a brand new house or an existing house, that still applies. Even though when you buy new property, the builder typically has a warranty that covers everything for the first year. Just because the home inspector says it needs to be repaired doesn't necessarily mean the builder's going to agree. The builder's going to get a chance to respond and say, yeah, you're right, we should fix that. Or no, the home inspector doesn't know what he's talking about. We did this, this, and this doesn't need the repair that he recommends. And so for new construction, we always recommend if the builder disagrees with your home inspector, ask the builder to give you something back in writing. They're not going to give you a detailed report, but if there's three things that they say, hey, the home inspector's wrong, those don't need to be fixed, or our policy is that this is the way we do it, then make sure you document that. And that way, if something does happen later, you can go back and say, hey, we brought this up during the warranty period, but you said it wasn't a problem, but now X, Y, and Z has happened. And we want you to come back and fix it. So you at least have some grounds to go back and address it with them should something like that happen with the disagreement on the conditions that are in the home. For existing homes, it's a negotiation process. Much like when you sign your contract, you're renegotiating the contract is literally what you're doing when you get that home inspection and you put together that contract. You're going to renegotiate whether what it is you want fixed. So you have different options. You can ask to have it repaired. You can ask to have money to get it repaired. Or you can ask them to reduce the selling price of the house by the cost of the repairs, or some weird area in between, or some hybrid of those three different things. If you know it's going to need a $15,000 roof in a few years, maybe they won't give you the full 15, but maybe they'll give you half of it or 2/3 of it. And so maybe that will help you get over the hump that says, okay, I can come up with the rest of it by the time I think this roof is going to wear out, and help offset some of that with you. So that's part of the negotiation process. And so you and your realtor is your best expert to help you in that negotiation process. But you can focus on the most important items to you that are more substantial than cosmetic. Typically, cosmetic items aren't included. Upgrades are not included. So it's typically focusing on things that are broken that need to be fixed. And so, if you have an older house and it didn't have, safety features you would find in a more modern home, that may be acceptable. And so you may not be able to ask for those upgrades on those items. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do those later after you move into the house, but things like that you might want to address later. Just like in our super old house, maybe a 50-year or 60-year-old house, the stairs didn't have the same headroom as we have today. That actually may not be fixable ever without some serious remodeling to the house. And maybe you're going to be okay with that. So just, the home inspector is still going to bring those types of things up because they have to make sure that you're aware of it. But, if you just know that you got to be careful going up and down the steps, maybe that's the cost of buying that really perfect old house that you wanted to get that has the really great front porch that they just don't make anymore. And so, sometimes you have to make those decisions too. Some electrical upgrades have changed every 2 or 3 years. There's a new set of code requirements that come out for electrical requirements. The ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, they've changed every year since the 70s. Almost every time there's a cycle, there's been a new change. It started out, just put them on the outside of the houses. And they said, hey, maybe we should put them in bathrooms. And they said, hey, let's put some in the kitchens. Now they want them in the garages. Then they came back and said, you know what? Not only do we want them in kitchens, we want them everywhere in the kitchen, not just the ones that are next to the sink. And so over the years, those requirements have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. In the last 10 years, they come up with a new safety device called an arc fault circuit interrupter. Those are for fire safety. And so, those requirements have exploded too. It started out, they just wanted them on bedrooms. Then they added them to smoke alarm circuits. Today, almost every circuit in the house has an AFCI and a GFCI on it, providing electrical safety into the home. And so, those change over time. And just because the house didn't have it when it was built doesn't necessarily mean the seller has to put it in, and they typically don't, but it might be still something that you want to consider upgrading to in the future if, when you do that home repair. So some of the things the home inspector is going to bring up may be upgrades that you may have to consider doing a little bit later. But I just inspected a house today where when I was walking across the deck, I literally fell through the deck. My leg went through one of the floorboards. And the buyer probably needs to negotiate to get that fixed. That's a little unsafe. I was pretty lucky. I just scratched my leg a little bit. Actually, it wasn't really hard. It didn't cause me any problems. I was more embarrassed than I was hurt. It just bruised my ego.
You was embarrassed for this?
What's that?
Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but if they're important safety issues, you definitely want to make sure those are looked at as part of the negotiation process.
The other thing that it might be also changing is fire alarms. That changed. And even in some new construction in the Stafford area are putting fire suppression systems, sprinklers. So that's a completely thing that it needs to be addressed every so often. They need to do it. So anyhow.
Yeah. So now you've talked to your realtor, you come up with your list of the 5 or 10 things that you want to negotiate repairs on, and you've submitted them to the seller. It's still a negotiation process. So the seller is going to get a chance to respond, and they can either accept your offer, or they can completely flat out reject it and say, well, we'll find a new buyer, or they may make a counteroffer. Say, hey, we'll fix these 6 things, but that other one, you're going to have to take care of yourself. And so then you've got to decide, what you're going to do. And so it's a negotiation process, and there's governed by the timelines of the contract. And so each of you is going to have a chance to review whatever the current proposal is and either accept, reject, or make a counteroffer as many times as it takes for the buyer and seller to come to an agreement on what it is they want to have repaired.
Yes. And typically, what is the from your experience, the turnaround in reference to the time the seller has to a need to respond back to your request?
So for
You might know more about this than I do. I actually don't know. I think it's typically 2 or 3 days. It's never
That's
not
right.
a long time.
So in the contract, when you get a contract that is ratified, they tell you in there that you have X amount of days, 10 days to do a home inspection, 21 days to do your well, septic, so forth. They will tell you also, so the time exception, that you have to bring your list of repairs, let's say on Friday, the deadline. In that same paper that they ratify, that's what I mentioned before, please read your ratified contract again. It will stipulate how many days you have for them to respond to that request. Now it becomes a negotiating. So the buyer send the list through the realtor to the listing agent and the seller. They review it, and they take 3 days to do that. That's when it starts. The minute that you have that conversation, now that is another negotiation step. Now, after that, they will have to send it back to you. And sometimes it's a couple of days to review if they agree to do that repair, or if are they going to give you money to do it, or they're not going to do it. So that's what they have, some realtors have told me. So again, read the ratified contract, because they do change, and they don't realize that time frame in each of one of those, the time frame had changed sometimes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So that contract really does specify, exactly how much time you have to do those negotiations. And it says you're going to have 2 or 3 days or 4 days or whatever that time period is. And you really don't get a whole lot, because the whole time period is only 45 days. If you spent 5 days doing the home inspection, and then the seller gets 3 days, then you get 3 days, then they get 3 days. If you negotiate 2 or 3 times, you could be a couple of weeks into the process before you come to an agreement. Then the seller has to actually go back and actually get those repairs done prior to closing. So they're under a little bit of stress to try to get this agreement done as quickly as possible, so they have more time to actually start fixing the repairs. And that way they get a good chance to hire someone to come in and do the repair work. If you use the standard Northern Virginia sales agreement, the seller has agreed in the contract to only use licensed contractors. So you really, now sometimes sellers say, oh, I can fix that for you, and they fix it for you. I would caution you about not allowing the homeowner to do those repairs, and unless you're really sure he's a licensed contractor, or he's going to give you some guarantee on the work, because if the homeowner does his own repairs and it fails later, then the homeowner is responsible for it. But when they transfer that title, now you're responsible for it. So just because the homeowner fixed that leaky faucet, if it starts to leak again, now it's going to be your responsibility to repair. So I would always make sure that you try to make sure to stick with that rule and use licensed contractors, and get the receipts from those contractors. That way you know who to call if it happens again in the future. If there's no warranty, then at least you can bring somebody in who is familiar with it and say, yeah, we tried this, let's try something else. And they can at least move further down the repair list of options of how to address the concern. Or if it's under warranty, they may actually fix it as part of their warranty. A lot of contractors have 2, 3, 4 months worth of warranty covering their work, or up to 6 months. Most contractors don't really provide that much, but they provide a 30, 60 day or 90 days is very common. And so, things do happen. You have some ability to go back to them and say, hey, you fixed this, but it's still a problem. Can you come back and take another look at it? And so always ask for the receipts, and always stick with licensed contractors to do that repair work.
Okay. All right. And then also we sometimes we just talked about the repairs actually being done, that's been accepted. And so the other option is to have funds set aside for that, or negotiate in reference to a monetary amount that could be negotiated on the price on that. And so how do that typically work out for the buyer?
So you have to come up with some sort of a dollar amount that you think the repair is going to cost. And so that can be a little daunting for somebody who's not that familiar with it. I would caution you, one of the best ways to do it is actually call licensed contractors and ask them what they would charge for the repairs. Get 2 or 3. Don't just go with one, and try to get a range. And so you know what the high and the low end is, and that way you can negotiate
That's
that.
the seller.
If you can't get a specific contractor who's willing to come out and look at it during your contingency to give you that that repair cost, there are some online tools. I've been quite successful using some of these new AI things like Chat GPT or Google Gemini to come up with some cost estimates for clients on things. You can just type in the type of repair that you want, where you're at, and they can tell you what contractors in that area might charge and give you the range of what the high and lows might be. And that way you can kind of understand what your ability to negotiate is. So you can get some estimates on what that cost is. Your realtor may have some expertise in this area as well, or they may have some contractors they know who will be willing to give you that that feedback in the time you need, so that you can make sure that you get what?
Our report.
What?
Our report has the software.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. So there's lots of different ways that you can get repair cost estimates. With the HouseMaster home inspection report, we actually have a cost estimate tool. So if you get a report from us, you'll get a link to the cost estimate tool. And what it actually does is it actually pulls data from Angie's List in your zip code and tells you what contractors in that zip code charge for those types of repairs. It's a great tool because it allows you to pull that data from Angie's List without letting them start their relentless marketing campaign that happens. If you called Angie, they'd be happy to give you a repair estimate from their website, but you got to put your name and phone number in there. And about 2 seconds after you get that repair estimate, you're going to have 40 people calling you, or hopefully, if you really want to get it repaired, to try to offer to do those repairs for you. And so it does start a relentless marketing campaign. But if you use the access from the HouseMaster Cloud website, they don't get your contact information, so you're getting it more anonymously, and it helps you, work through that kind of getting that repair data for some simple repairs around in the home. And it's local because it's by zip code, so it looks for what Angie's List contractors are charging in those areas as well.
Okay.
It's a little bit cumbersome to use, but
it works.
But it works, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Back to, if the seller took care of the repairs, and hopefully they did it, they chose to have it done by a licensed contractor. In what cases would the home inspector come back out? Is that possible?
So we do offer a reinspection of things that were agreed to be repaired by the home seller. And so if you send us a copy of the home inspection contingency, signed home inspection contingency addendum, we do charge a separate fee for that to do those repair addendums. And so consider what's on the list. If it's fairly simple stuff that you can see yourself and you'd recognize if it was done properly, maybe you don't need to hire an inspector. If you're comfortable getting the receipts from the contractors that did the work, then maybe that's sufficient. But, you be careful about that. I did one home inspection where there was an outlet on the back of the house that wasn't working. And I went back to reinspect. They hired me twice to come back and reinspect it. And both times it wasn't repaired. And on that second visit, the electrician was so mad, he showed up while I was there and says, "Oh, it's that outlet." I says, "Yeah, that's the one that the pictures of." Well, that electrician kept fixing different outlets, but he didn't have the picture because the seller didn't give him a copy of my report when they told him to come fix the outlet. They just gave him a verbal description of what they thought. And so he was fixing the wrong thing. Yeah. I had a similar one in a bathroom. I had a plumber who showed up during the outbrief and said, "But I fixed the leak from the toilet." I says, "Which toilet?" And he says, "Well, the one in the powder room." He says, "The one that's leaking is in the master bedroom." And so sometimes, they just think they think they got the right one, or they just fixed the wrong one. And so these guys, it's an honest mistake. And sometimes you find these honest mistakes and we can get those corrected. Sometimes it just slips through the cracks and the seller says, "Oh, that doesn't need to be fixed." And even though they signed their repair addendum, they decide they have their remorse later and they decide, "I'm not going to fix that item." So it's worth double checking. But if you're not comfortable looking at it and seeing if the repairs are done, then consider hiring your home inspector to come back and look at it. Now, one caution about that. We're not licensed contractors. We're home inspectors, and we don't guarantee other people's work. So all we can tell you is what we thought, if the repairs look like it's been completed or not. Now, if the home inspection said the HVAC system isn't working properly and it needs to be cleaned and serviced, I can't tell if they cleaned and serviced it or not unless it was absolutely dirty the first time. I can tell you if it's still absolutely dirty. So sometimes that report from that contractor may be the only way you can verify that the work was done. If there was a repair inside a chimney and it was done, the home inspector didn't look inside the chimney flue to see where that damage was. So he might not be able to tell you where that is anyway. And so sometimes you may want to consider, there may be another third party you want to come back and look at that. Chimneys typically require chimney sweeps with cameras to put the cameras up into the flue to look for repairs. And so, you may not be able to verify that new flue liner is working properly unless you actually have another chimney inspector look at it more closely. And so it's important to look at those types of things. But in general, ask for any receipts and do that. Now, for builders, I would ask you to do something else also. For new construction, if you're talking with a builder and they agree to repair something, the builder is still the one that's warrantying it, but you might want to ask them, hey, can you send me a picture of the repair showing that it's done, or show me when it's done to demonstrate it for you when we do our final walkthrough or something. And so sometimes, some things you may be able to ask the builder. And in some instances, maybe the home inspector said a ceiling fan wasn't working in one of the rooms. And the problem wasn't that the ceiling fan wasn't working. Just I didn't understand the controls. There was a remote somewhere that wasn't visible, or it needed 2 switches to be in the right position for it to work properly. Maybe the seller could just demonstrate it to you. And so sometimes that might be the fix as well. So, ask the builders or sellers if they're willing to demonstrate, like if it's a difficult fireplace to light, sometimes the seller knows the exact way to get that pilot light lit and to turn it on, and they can show you that. And that can be an important lesson, or the right way to open. I did a house where the door to the deck was sticking, and the seller knew the right way to push on it just to get it to open properly. And so I didn't know that. And the seller was happy once they figured, and the buyer was happy once they knew that what that little trick was, so they could get the door open properly. Maybe it still needed some repair work, but at least they knew that it was actually working. And so it wasn't as big of an issue on their topic list of things they wanted to negotiate for repairs if they knew how to operate it the right way.
Yes, that's amazing with the phones that we have, the smartphones that we have these days. We didn't have those things, 30 years ago. And so we could definitely pull that thing out and take a picture. And actually, I was listening to a video today. It was in reference to a photographer. And was speaking of, when she first got into the business, on the jobs that she was getting, like photographer doing weddings and birthdays and things of that sort, but got into construction photography. Would actually on the site and would come out there for 2 hours per day doing the construction site to take certain pictures. But I would highly recommend that for individuals when trying to explain a repair or something, taken before and after pictures. Very good. And definitely if you have a trick door, like, some different doors to open and whatever, do a little video of that. That's definitely a good idea to suggest the individual pull that phone out and use it. Yes. Okay. Well, we are nearing the end here for today's session. And I think we have definitely drilled in. The home inspection is a very, 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 very important part of the transaction. And definitely recommend in all cases for first-time home buyers is that you ensure that you have that contingent if all possible. And if it's not contingent upon the home inspection, then that contingency, then I would recommend personally to have it for informational purposes, because you will definitely get informed about the property that you're moving in on. So I highly recommend that. Yes. Okay. So Tim, any last thing that you would like to say in reference to addressing those findings before we close out?
Yeah. So I just want to quote something my wife always says. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. My wife always says, friends don't let friends buy a house without a home inspection either. And so it's super important. It's one of the largest investments you're going to have. And I've done home inspections where literally the buyer went from the closing table to unlock the door for me to do the home inspection. And so they did the inspection after they bought the house. And so it's just so important. Even if you can't negotiate the repairs, we always recommend you still do it, because you just don't know what you don't know. And home repairs get more expensive the longer you let them wait. Just think about just a simple thing like caulking on the outside of the house. Today, it's an $8 tube of caulk. Tomorrow, it might be some wood trim that has to be replaced. If you wait another year, it might be the window that has to be replaced, or parts of the wall, or parts of the siding. And so those costs just keep going up and up if you don't take care of them early. Yeah. And some things you can put off, and your home inspector can let you know that, hey, this is a problem, but you might have more time to take care of it. and you can prioritize it and take care of it a little bit later instead of right now.
Yeah, super. And so make sure that when you're talking to a housing counselor, and make sure that when y'all setting up those plans to purchase, that you have the set aside, and make sure that home inspection is going to be, whether it's in the transaction or not, you're going to have that inspection done. All right, Tim. And so before we leave here, we want to put up here your contact information. And can you just talk to our audience and tell them how they can get into contact with you if they need to follow up additional information?
Yeah, Addie and I both own the HouseMaster franchise in Stafford and Lower Prince William counties. You can reach us at our email address, which is either tim.fisher@housemaster.com or addie.fisher@housemaster.com. Our office phone number is on there. And then HouseMaster is an international franchise. So if you want to go directly to our webpage, it's www.housemaster.com/580. And that'll take you directly to our webpage. So you can look for us if you're interested in finding us.
And when you're trying to contact us, call me at that number, and I will then at that point require to have some information from the property. I like to say also, we go where the client takes us within an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half from Stafford. So, and if we cannot do the inspection, like he says, we had other franchisees. There's another franchisee that is in Richmond, Virginia. There's another one that is in Fauquier County, and one by Virginia Beach.
There's some in Maryland. There's some in Canada. They're all over the United States. So if you can't help you, we can point you in the right direction.
So just give us a call anytime that you want. And if you want to meet us in person, Charlene, do you have that page for the appreciation day?
Yes, we are getting ready to pull that up. Great segue.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlene.
All right. So if you would like to meet Addie and Tim in person, you can do so on Saturday. As Larry stated at the beginning of our conversation, this event is going to be on Saturday, our Community Appreciation Day. Kickoff time is 11 a.m. We're going to have our community partners such as Addie and Tim, and then we have some other community partners that will be out there that you can meet in person, get some information, have a little bit of conversation. I want to say lunch will be served at 12 noon. So we will be having some food out there. We have our walk, we have our run, we have our moon bounce, face painting, we have our Zumba, we got our yoga. All of that good stuff will be out there starting again on Saturday, the 25th at 11 a.m. And we keep going until 4 o'clock. Rain, sleet, sunshine, it doesn't matter. I'll probably have ponchos if it plans on raining. So regardless, we will be there. Sir?
Yes. And I think it may be somewhat, hopefully it's warmer. I think it's going to be warmer than it was last year, but it do have rain in the forecast that come late in the evening. So it's been shifting around. Hopefully they can shift it past 6 o'clock. And so that's what I'm going to put an order in, ship the participation to come in after 6 p.m. So to make sure that you can come there, enjoy yourself at 4 o'clock and get home before you get wet. But yes, we have some ponchos left over. And so I would say maybe bring a poncho because we have some. We don't have enough for 80 people. Right now we have registration is up over 70 now. So we expecting to have 80 there. That's the projection. We for those that are registered. And I originally said everyone we would give the t-shirts out, the white t-shirts to everyone that pre-register. We actually have some left over from last year. And so I think we still have over 100 if we add the ones that we ordered for this one, we're going to give the white t-shirts out from last year as well. So everyone come out there and get a t-shirt. And so come out and get your t-shirt. Going to have a little goodie bag there. So we're going to have some promotional items from our sponsors and our partners, from HouseMaster and the other partners. We have a goodie bag to give you. We're going to have drawings, and so you're going to be able to get gift cards during that time. And also we'll have a 50-50 raffle, and so you could leave there with some cash. You could probably leave there with more cash than you spent to get there, And so that, and of course, competition. We love competition. I'm first on the lines, we get prizes out for first place winners. I'm sorry. If you come in second place, then you won't get a gift card. But if you come
we don't do that over here. You don't get a participation award.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't do that.
So
You either win or nothing.
you either win or nothing. So come out there. We'll probably get the most active person doing Zumba. We may have the Zumba instructor to pick out someone that's more active, And so that's an easy competition, to win the Zumba. And then also yoga. You may get a gift card from participating. So participate in these things. You may actually get a gift card from that. And of course, the walk is going to be a 1 mile walk on the trail, nature trail walk. And I did walk the trail last Sunday, I think I was there. And also, if you can opt to run as well. And so for some of the guys, I'll be running, but I plan to win the walk and let Addie or Tim or Charlene win the run.
Sure. I think Chase got it in the bag.
Yeah, so usually one of her boys, they guys are good. Yeah.
Larry, I think I'll be walking your 1 mile. I don't think I'll be running, so I won't be winning it either.
Okay. All right. Yes. And so the meal this time is going to be catered by Famous Dave. And so they will be delivering, but we will be serving. And so Famous Dave will be delivering the barbecue meal there. And we have opt for those that do not want the sauce. We'll have clear smoked chicken as well. If you do not want the sauce, you can add it on your own, and the sauce will be added in. So that's going to be your option there. And yes, and so yes, Zumba has confirmed she will be there, and we got Tippy. Now, if you want to do the yoga, you got to get there early because we're going to start the yoga at 11, no later than 11:05, and then Tippy have to be off stage by 11:20 because she have another obligation. So if you want to enjoy our yoga, please come early and meet Tippy in person. And don't forget, Tim and Addie is going to be there in person as well. And a lot of other organizations such as VA Rep, American Legion is going to be there recruiting. And one of our credit unions will be there as well. Realtor and also other lenders will be there. So come on out. That's Saturday at the Veterans Memorial Park. We're going to start at 11 a.m. And if you haven't registered, please go ahead and register and do so that we can get credit for you actually being there. And we're going to actually do some little financial literacy game, a credit game while we're there as well. Anything else you want to add, Charlene?
No, don't miss it. It's a wonderful opportunity. Do not miss it. We have a fabulous time every year. What is this? Our 18th year, right?
Yep.
Yes, it's the 18th annual. And hopefully I mentioned PJ Santiago, and he's a real estate professional. He was not a real estate professional when he became to First Home Alliance as an intern first. He came as an intern from George Mason. After his internship, his graduation, he continued to volunteer with First Home Alliance. And actually it was his idea. So Larry, we are heavily dependent on our volunteers at the time. And so I think it would be a great idea to set up something for volunteer appreciation. So that was in 2008. The first volunteer, and PJ set it up at Fuddruckers, and we have continued to the tradition. We went from volunteer appreciation indoors until I think Charlotte Van Horn. She came around maybe 2013 or so, and her idea was, hey, let's go outside and move it around. She used to love the dance, and so we did that and took it outside, and we've been outside in the park for the last 12 or 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sun, rain, shine, snow. So, and of course, Charlene has been there every year as well. If we don't get the meal catered, then Charlene is there. You have prepared beautiful meals, and she was.
I'm off this year.
Yeah, she'll be there to serve you this year.
Yeah, I'll serve, but I ain't got to cook.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for our audience, and look forward to seeing you on Saturday. And for our virtual audience, we'll see you next Thursday with Tim and Addie will be here as well. You have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Adiós. Que Dios los bendiga.